Hey guys, what's up? So in our last episode, we saw what it requires to get started with Fill Flash, right? So we just saw what are the components needed to get started. So in today's episode, we would go through what are the settings needed to get started with Fill Flash photography. So let's get inside the show. So once we get inside the menu, we have this flash control option. Go inside flash control to external flash function setting, and here we can see that we are already in ETTL mode, right? So we need to ensure that we are in ETTL mode for using flash. And one other important thing is the flash synchronization, right? So we have like first, second and third is the high speed sync. So as I said, if we want to shoot above 1/250th of a second, we need to be in high speed sync mode, and we need to ensure that we have a flash gun which can support it. So this is the basic setting which we need to have before even going into flash exposure compensation. The first way to control flash exposure would be using this flash exposure button which we have in the camera LCD. Once we press the exposure composition button on the camera LCD screen, so this is how the option pops up, right? And if you look at the bottom, you can see that how we can control the exposure composition of flash. You can underexpose or overexpose depending upon the situation. So this is the first way to control flash. The second way to control the exposure composition would be using the quick menu, right? So once we press the quick menu, it gives the flash exposure composition here. So we can go here and set whether we want to underexpose or overexpose. So this is our option 2 using the quick menu in the camera LCD. Just press the quick menu and set the exposure composition which you want for flash. The third way to control the flash exposure composition would be using this flash trigger key which we have. So once we press this, here is the option which we have which allows us to control the exposure composition, right? So I go inside, so I can underexpose or overexpose depending on the scene. So this is the third way. All we do is press the flash button, and this is how the option pops up, and I go inside and we can pretty much control the exposure composition of flash. The fourth option to control the flash would be using the exposure composition in the flash itself, right? So we are in TTL mode, and here I can go underexpose or overexpose depending on the scene, right? So this is the fourth way. So we are in TTL mode, I get inside, so this is ETTL mode, right? So it would match the ambient light, but if you want to underexpose or overexpose, this is how it is. So most of the time we would be in ETTL mode, and that's the preferred mode to be in when we do bird photography, right? Now quickly, let us quickly discuss on what is a good starting point for the flash exposure composition, right? So usually I shoot or I start with -2 or -3 depending upon the situation. But again, I think that's the good starting point, and I never had a situation where I need to really bump up the exposure that is on the brighter side, right? Because if we try to bump up the exposure in low light conditions, often the image would be flat, right? And that's not desired when we do bird photography. Now, when do we need to switch to manual mode? So consider a scenario where you have a completely backlit subject, right? even if you are in ETTL mode, and irrespective of how much we would bump up the exposure compensation on the brighter side, it's not going to overpower the backlit subject. So in this scenario is when we can consider switching to manual mode, right? So we go into manual mode and pretty much overpower the sun, right? Or you can shoot at half power of the flash or full power of the flash, depending on the situation. Yeah, so far we have seen what are the components needed to get started with full flash photography. We also saw what are the different ways to control the flash, right? And so let's quickly discuss what are the advantages of using full flash and how does it affects our normal exposure process, right? So normally I think even using flash, or if you are not using flash, the exposure remains the same. Meaning even if I have attached my flash to the camera, I expose the scene as I normally do. For example, if I need ISO 800 for a scene, it is pretty much the same ISO. If I need ISO 2000 for a scene, it is pretty much ISO 2000, right? So that is a misconception that if you have flash, you can increase the flash power and reduce the ISO, right? So if we do that way, what we would get is a very flat image, which is not impressive at all, right? I think this is the core concept which we need to understand, right? So even using full flash, we need to expose the scene normally as we do, right? So I think that's a key. Now let us quickly discuss what actually this full flash does to the output image if it's done correctly, right? So if we use this full flash correctly, few of the things which we can see in our output is the output image contrast would be good. It helps us freeze the motion. It gives us the catch light in the bird, and fourth, it helps us in reducing the shadows in the bird. So pretty much these are the four advantages of using full flash, right? And test it out. So I think pretty much we have seen everything what it takes to get started with full flash. I would let you go and experiment, and if you have any comments, just share with me. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.